And we are recording at the Healing Mastery Summit with Dr. Sue Morter. Thank you so much for joining us at the Healing Mastery Summit. We really appreciate it.
My great joy. I look forward to where we get to go today. This is a fascinating time and a fascinating topic. So let's dig in.
Awesome. I'd like to speak to you about that fascinating time. But before we do, quick introduction. For those that don't know Sue Morter, you've been around for 30 years as a doctor, correct?
Yes.
And you've done, the list of your bio is just extensive. So I'm going to keep it a little bit short, but you're an international speaker. You're a master of bioenergetic medicine, which we'll get into. A nationally best-selling author, which I got the book right here. That just launched, correct?
Yes, in March, early this year. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You redirect the flow of energy patterns in the body to activate full human potential. With more than 30 years experience as a doctor and facilitator of groups and individuals interested in natural healing and a better life. That's what this whole summit is about. So it's perfect alignment. And Dr. Sue, you share in your developments and unique perspective drawn from life-changing awakening during ancient meditation practice. And you do this through seminars, retreats, presentations, your book. So you've taught globally for years, decades now. I'm excited. One of the first questions I have is, you mentioned this is an exciting time.
Yes.
And why is it an exciting time?
You know, our world is up in arms in many ways. We are feeling like nothing is the same. We're not sure who we are, who our allies are, what we can count on, what is truth, and how do we heal, and how do we keep ourselves together? How do we move forward and progress in life? It's just a very conflicted, confusing time, but
Yeah.
I see that as full of potential. It's the chaos that we can draw anything from and create a new reality based upon the energies that are in upheaval. If everything was traditionally in status quo and was locked in and we were sure about things, we wouldn't be inquiring. We wouldn't be so interested in other possibilities. And so I see this time as a time that is cultivating our creatorship instead of our survivorship and the status quo. So
beautiful. And I totally agree. And you said something powerful, which is what is truth? And in healing, I think truth is very important. And so where are people led astray now? Like, because there is a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people who are not aligned with their truth, and they think maybe they are, or their belief systems are led astray. So what is truth to you?
yeah, so there are 11 billion bits of information that are bombarding our energy field every millisecond.
Wow.
Cosmic information, universal intelligence. That's by design.
Yeah.
It's coming in. I don't mean from the media alone. I mean from beyond the earth, from constellations. Literally, information is coming in all the time. And we're designed to be able to hear it, feel it, sense it, know it, trust it, and align with it, and live by it. And it doesn't arrive at our head. It arrives at our gut level. It comes in at the gut level through the enteric brain system in our gut. It starts to get interpreted as impressions, nuances, like gut feelings, hunches, those kinds of things. And then it rises through us and it gets filtered through our heart and the intelligence of love and compassion and holism that it allows everyone to be served by what we do and say. And then it continues, if we let it, to rise up to our consciousness that we can then formulate words and ideas and take actions based upon. So truth to me is when I've built the circuits to be able to sense and feel and follow what is deep within me, my deep core truth, and let it rise, not based upon my belief systems, but based upon a sensation that I feel in my body, and allow it to be my guide. So as that happens, the indigenous peoples lived this way, and as that happens for us, we become aligned with a cosmic truth, a universal truth, an earthly grounded essence that prevails beyond what we're being told through the media or what we're having in conversation or what our fear-based choices are leading us to. So it's more of a confidence-based, gut feeling, deep essence that we are in touch with our conscious minds that allows us to live in an alignment of sorts that allows for healing. It allows for a revealing of a greater life experience.
That's beautifully put. And can you give an example? I don't want to, like, doesn't have to be political or anything like that, but can you give an example of where people are like just led astray because they're hearing, like, words have an ability to separate us from this feeling, correct? So yes, when we hear these words and these bits and pieces, where are people led astray? Like, where, like, are there examples of this?
Sure. There's a basic fundamental example that that we are broken, that something is missing, that we need something from the outside in order to make us whole, that we have to get or accomplish or achieve or arrive or go somewhere to have the life experience that we're desiring to have. What we're desiring to have is a sensation of wholeness, of completeness, of exchange and sharing and love and unconditionality. And we think and have been led to believe, only because our teachers thought it and their teachers thought it and their teachers thought it, that it was on the outside, from the outside in. And what quantum science is showing us now is that actually there's nothing out there. There is no one out there. There's only one of us here. It's a really wild conversation that is maybe more complex than we need to get into today. But basically what quantum science is showing us is that we're projecting a movie onto a movie screen, and then we get caught up in the movie and think that it's real. But we're projecting a movie onto a movie screen only to give us feedback to learn how to manage the energies of our true self. Yeah. So if things aren't going the way that I want them to go in my life, we have a tendency to go out there and try to change the people and change the circumstances and get them to behave in different ways so that we can be happy, so that we can then be healthy or be successful, etc. And it's a waste of time, because they're only doing what we hired the actors and the actresses to do. And we wrote the script and we produced the movie, we directed it, and we're starring in it. Yeah. And so it becomes a dog chasing its tail kind of reality that we're living in. So return to the inside out is the key.
So that's a great question. So the I'm offended generation, what's going on there in that scenario? Do you have any insight into that?
So I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Like the insight into the I'm offended generation, where it's like everybody's offended by everything nowadays. Isn't that just a projection of their own issue with the egos, or what's going on there?
Yes, so it is not understanding one's power to generate the life experience that they're choosing. Mm-hmm. When we are attached to the external world and thinking that it has the power, when it does something that I'm offended about, it's supposed to be a cue to teach me how to lean in, how to lead, how to create change, how to demonstrate what it is that we can perceive as is possible. So it's an opportunity. Rather than sitting back and just being offended, it's a cue for me to get on board and to take action so that I can feel myself coming forward as a creator, rather than just sitting back and being a victim to my external circumstances. It's going to be a long ride if that's the only way that we're approaching life, to sit back and think, you should be doing it differently if you want me to be happy. You know, if I'm not going to be offended by you, you're going to have to behave differently. And, you know, good luck with that, because if the world was interested in pleasing you, they would be. And that's not how it's rolling. Everyone's kind of out there in a fend for themselves kind of way, and it doesn't have to be that way. But we have to demonstrate. I feel that the one who is offended is a leader in disguise, and they're hiding from themselves and not really accessing why these circumstances are going the way that they are. And all we have to do is flip it over. That's what I refer to in the book as the quantum flip. It's literally a flip. Quantum science is showing us that there are at least two realities going on all the time. And we're at choice as to which one we're going to live in.
Yes.
Either it's coming from out there toward me, or it's coming from in here and I'm revealing. So we're here to navigate how to get in touch with our ability to create the reality that we choose to live in.
So what's the first step? So say I'm a person that's offended by everything, right? And I'm like, I see something on social media and like, oh, I got a comment. I'm offended by this. Like, how do I start to recognize and be conscious that that is something that I need to address?
Okay, so if I'm taking offense, I'm taking something personally, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
and to start to take the things that we've taken personally and make them impersonal, and take the things that we think are impersonal and bring them in closer to home. Meaning, we think there is a greater reality out there somewhere, but I'm not in touch with it, or it's not working in my favor, or where is the blessing or the guidance or the help when I need it? If we would accept and receive that blessing or that guidance or that support or that help from literally from a greater than human level, even just from a cosmic or from a natural design, and recognize that nature is in support of you. Nothing is against you. That the idea that things are against me is a fundamental falsehood that sets us up for a transactional reality that unfolds in a domino reaction kind of way, proving to us that it's true that the world is not in support of me. So basically, we're going to prove whatever we set out to prove.
Right.
So if I'm offended by something, maybe I'm supposed to be leading or teaching or sharing. But if I respond back on social media, for instance, in an offended vibrational tone,
Right.
The only thing I can possibly call back to me is more offensive vibrational tone reality.
Right.
If I can center myself and ground myself in such a fashion that if I read something that's just off, and I can see that they're just not seeing from a holistic perspective,
Yeah.
if I can be grounded and centered in my holism before I respond, I'm likely to embark in an entirely different reality. I'm going to put a message out there that is a different vibrational frequency than the one that I will if I get on that keyboard and go for proving my point.
Yep.
It's going to be a totally different outcome.
Yes.
So one of both and, one of inclusiveness, one of demonstrating that there is no right and wrong, that everyone is right and they have their own perspectives, and that we all have our right to our perspectives as long as it's not hurting anyone, or as long as it's not going against natural law. So those are some initial steps to check in before you take any kind of action. Before you speak, where are you speaking from? Are you just trying to prove a point, and are you defensive? If you are defensive, I guarantee your movie is going to reflect back to you more opportunities to be defensive. It has no choice but to do that.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in living that way, have at it. If you're getting tired of that, then you have to shift what you're projecting onto the movie screen. You have to say, I could jump in and win this argument, but I'm really not interested in arguing. I'd really rather send something peaceful out into the world and show the world how to do that.
Yeah, so one is almost living in the ego, and the other's living in the spirit or the soul, maybe, could you say?
Completely. And this is what the Energy Codes book is all about. It's about learning to peel yourself away from living as the protective personality or the ego or the false self, the one that needs to defend and to protect and to perform and to be better than or to score big or whatever.
Right.
To peel off of that and sit back down in your true essence, that soulful self, the essential self, that spherical being that is truly an energy being that doesn't have to name or measure or predict the future or control the future, but that is really rather here focused on how do we live in harmony? How do we bring forward our greatest gifts and share them with each other? And how do we encourage that in the other person in such a fashion that allows them to know they have safe harbor here with me. They can reveal their true self, and I'm providing a safe space for them to do that.
Yeah.
To look from that perspective is an entirely different life course.
Amazing. So, uh, for the listeners, you guys are listening to a true master. I mean, I speak to a lot of people on this subject all the time, and the way that you unpack it and you explain it is just amazing. So, thank you for that. And the next question I have for you is, how did you get into this? Like, where did the path start? Like, how did this come about?
So great question. So I was actually born into it in a way. I was born into a family that was focused on natural health care. And meaning I've never gone to the doctor and taken an antibiotic for an ailment in order to get well. I was raised in a family that knew that the body had the ability to heal itself, and that all we had to do is align the energies that are flowing through the body and make sure that they are integrated, and the body will heal itself. We're built as a self-healing, self-regulating, self-illuminating, self-referencing being. We've got it all. But most people aren't raised that way. So I was raised in that knowing.
Right.
And so there's this deep inherent truth that connects with nature in me. But I travel the world and teach other people how to connect with that truth, because whether we were raised that way or not is irrelevant. We all have access to that.
Yeah.
And even though I was raised with that, I still had the stuff that I needed to awaken to in my life.
Right.
So I learned these words to say, and I learned these principles to live by. And I went to school and I became a doctor and I opened my practice and I was teaching other people all this information that I was raised with. But at the end of the day, there's this deep inherent sense of self that we each have to find, that we each have to recognize that's the real me.
Right.
Nothing can interrupt it. Nothing can keep me from it. It is true. It's always true, no matter who I'm around that agrees with it or doesn't agree with it or gets it or doesn't get it. None of that matters. What matters is I get it. I feel it. I sense it. I know it. And that's my come from. So in the course of my life, like in everyone's life, I had to bump up against that edge and feel the friction.
Yeah.
So for me, I became kind of an over pleaser. Like I had all these answers and I wanted to make sure everybody got them and I wanted to share it and get out there and teach everybody. And I realized that, not everybody was interested in learning it, especially 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I became stressed out a little bit, or a lot of bit. And I would drive home after work and my knuckles would be white because I'd be gripping the steering wheel just like, because these people weren't listening or whatever. And I finally realized, I just have to do my thing. If I go into my treatment room every day and show up the way that I know I can show up for people, and I do that from treatment room to treatment room to treatment room all day long, then I've had a good day. And if anybody in that treatment room takes that advice and uses it, then they've had a good day.
Right.
And so I kind of had to create this separation. Now, then I was drawn to meditation. As a sense of stress relief, I went into meditation. And that's not what meditation is about, but it certainly works for that.
Right.
And I instantly started having transcendental experiences, multidimensional experiences. My consciousness lit up in a huge way. And I was
it would be non-ordinary states of being, kind of?
Not ordinary state of being. Okay. Absolutely transcendental. What we would call an out-of-body experience, what the people who have written about near-death experiences describe. I have the exact same descriptions from my own experiences long before I ever read Eben Alexander's work or Anita Morjani's work, that people who have died or been in comas that have this transcendental experience.
Yeah.
People meditating for many years were practicing toward having these experiences, and I dropped into meditation instantly and it lit up. So it changed my life forever. I was me, but I wasn't in a body. I was this ray of light. I could see the earth beneath me, about the size of a marble, and I was embedded into it. I could see 360 degrees around me, the same behind and front, below, above. I was in a light so brilliantly bright, it was 10 times brighter than the brightest day in the desert that I had ever experienced. It was another dimension. I was me, but not in a physical body. I could feel myself embedded into the earth up to what would have been my knees. Wow. And most importantly, there was nothing to accomplish. There was nothing missing. There was nothing broken. I was completely satisfied, satiated. I was completely complete.
Yeah.
And I knew that this was the truth of all of us. And what was happening was this light was being breathed down through this ray of light that I was, and it was literally breathing love to the planet.
Yeah.
And sounds bizarre. And I was a scientist, and it's like, stuff like this doesn't happen. This is not my world.
Yeah.
And yet I knew that it was more real than the world that I had been living in. And so it changed my life. My whole world just took a turn. I started studying it. How do I reproduce this experience? I turned my life into a living laboratory so that I could access these frequencies again, so that I could have access to this. And I'll just say this lastly. Basically, here's what happens with people. They get in their heads, we live in our heads, and the mind works like this ceiling fan that's spinning so fast you would never stick your finger through it because it would cut you, right? So the mind is like that. But the true self is this essential self that's operating on a totally different frequency. This is the true self, and this is the mind. So we have to learn to slow down the mind so that we can get through there and experience ourselves beyond our limiting beliefs, but beyond this idea that we think we know what's going on here, because we don't. There's another version of you that does, and that's what people have to learn to access if we want that. Now, we don't have to have the big visual experience that I had. I turned my life into a laboratory and codified how to do that so that people didn't have to try to have these experiences in order to connect with a greater truth.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm actually teaching people, is how to benefit, even though we haven't learned how to, achieve such an exalted state with our consciousness. We can still learn to live by what comes with that exalted state of consciousness, and thereby providing the perfect set of circumstances to project a better movie onto the screen so that we can live an entirely different way on this earth.
Now, what's your opinion about how that came to you so easily? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do. I immediately started having other memories of having been there before many, many times.
Okay.
So people might call that past life experiences, old soul type of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm definitely here as a teacher. I definitely have come back to the planet to do this thing that I'm doing. It is 100% why I am here.
Yes.
So I think that it was just tapping, we kind of pick up where we left off on any kind of project. You get back on a bicycle, you get back on a horse, you pick up where you left off. And so if you've been around before, it kind of starts coming back to you. And it's kind of coming from that place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was told by somebody who read like my Akashic records that I was a master physician in the past 2 lives, and I came back with a kind of the same role, but as a different person. And I was like, okay. But I'm doing the same thing now. I'm like pushing natural healing. So, would you say that everybody has a role? Like everybody has a path, and is there specific roles that they're put here for? Like you're here as a teacher. How does that work?
Yeah, I totally think so. And I think they're already doing it. And the only thing that keeps them from enjoying it, if they're not, is that they don't know that they're already doing it, that they think that they're supposed to find some fantastical aha, this revelation that like puts it all together in a moment, kind of like it happened with me. But it doesn't have to happen in an instant like that. You've already been attracted to it. Because I can look at you and I can say, absolutely, you are in your groove. You're doing, I look at you and I look at the images and the posters behind you, the human anatomy and the physiology and what's happening there, and it resonates with you. And so I don't know how long you've been attracted to doing what you're doing or sharing what you're sharing in the world, but I guarantee that even in your early childhood, you were already putting pieces together and building skill sets that were going to allow you to be here now with the expertise that you are. So if someone right now is listening to us and saying, well, I haven't been doing that, I've been doing all kinds of other things all my life, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I assure you, you are gathering different types of information, pieces of information or skill sets or topics or that are touching aspects of your wholeness. And it's coming together. It can't not be. There is no exception to this for everyone. We are drawing a vortex of energy together that is swirling around, that is being an alchemical reaction inside of you, that is allowing you to awaken step by step, day by day, breath by breath. It's happening. Now, I wrote the book that I wrote to help people get a hold of that faster, and I teach coursework to enhance that. But even if you never accessed either one of those things, it's gonna happen in your life. It is already happening. It's not happening in the future. It's happening right on time in exactly the right mix for every single viewer that we have with us, in this moment. So there are no exceptions to that. We're projecting a movie that, think of the movie that you're projecting, that I've been talking about since we've been here, similar to if a surgeon is going to do laparoscopic surgery. They're going inside the body with tiny instruments, and they're looking over here on a TV, on a computer monitor, to see how they're doing with the surgical procedure inside this body. But they're looking at a screen over here to see how they're doing on the inside of that body. This movie of our lives is exactly the same thing. We're looking at a monitor to see how we're doing with managing the energies inside of us to masterfully integrate all of our capacities. So if we've been attracted to different things in the course of our life, and we don't feel like we've landed on it or put it all together yet, it's no big deal. It's happening. It's gonna happen. It is already happening. So if we chill out, we actually create a better vibrational frequency for it to do its thing without us interrupting it. When we get worried and concerned and we fret and we get questioning about ourselves, or we get aggravated or frustrated, all of those things are creating a vibrational frequency that is squelching out the energetics, the bioenergetics that are naturally here to put the pieces together and allow you to get out through that ceiling fan and experience the greatest version of yourself possible. So yeah, I could just go on and on about it.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to there's a line where it says, it was written. It was written already before this is what's going to happen, or part of the process. Now, when you were back 30 years ago trying to teach this stuff, were you getting frustrated because you're dealing with the obstacles of the mind? People, you're telling people your body has the ability to heal naturally, and they're just where's the medication? And how much medication can you give me? Is that kind of the scenario that you were running into?
Totally. So, and I hadn't yet learned the distinction between the two. I learned that the body has the ability to heal itself, and there were certain things you could do in your lifestyle to enhance that. But it didn't include, I wasn't taught about meditation when I was growing up. My father didn't do that. He was a brilliant thinker, and he prided himself on thinking and putting these pieces together. So that was a part of the puzzle, but it wasn't the whole puzzle. There's another part of the puzzle that comes without the thinking mind doing the doing. There's a greater part of you that doesn't have to think in order to be. That's what meditation is teaching people, is that you exist when you're not thinking. So, and you actually, the greater part of you exists when you're not thinking, but you're observing, and you're just stewarding and guiding this universal intelligence that's coming down through you, coming into you and rising up through you. And this whole combination of energies is trying to happen. But when you're busy thinking, you're dialed into an entirely different radio station, and you can't even perceive the amazing magic that's trying to happen through your system. And our culture hasn't been focused in such a reality in mass at all. Yes. So we live in a world that doesn't honor that. And in the Western world, or the civilized, nations they're busy doing instead of perceiving. When in actuality, we are sensory beings. We have 10 to 100 to 10,000 times more sensory fibers in our body than we do motor. But we're focused on motor action. What do I do to make a difference? I'll tell you what to do is learn how to perceive more. Yeah. Learn how to receive and perceive more of what's here for you, so that you can take action in an instant, knowing. Because the only reason we don't know what to do is because we aren't perceiving enough information. We think linearly, and we're supposed to be thinking quantumly, perceiving. The quantum version of thinking, linear thinking, quantum perceiving. There's the difference. Linear thinking, quantum perceiving. I want to live in a quantum world, because that's what's true. Yep. And so if I can learn to master my ability to perceive, I'm gonna be living in a totally different life. So yeah, I was plugged into this, but I didn't have a way of describing it, 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
until this thing happened with me, which is about 20 years ago. And then I started turning things into a different way of perceiving it all, and everything changed. Everything changed.
That's amazing. Now, so you were a scientist, and the scientists, we study matter. We study the physical world. So when you say these things, and maybe another scientist says, well, like, prove it. And they're like, I know we have a lot of quantum, physics, and there's science there, but how do you approach that?
Sure. So if you study physical matter, if you start breaking it apart to study what's it made of, what's it made of, what's that made of, what's that made of, just you get down to the molecular level, and then you can dissect a molecule, and you get down to the atomic level. Right. And then, in the 20s, they invented the electron microscope. So now we can take an atom and look at subatomic particles, little tinier particles. And if you get down to the tiniest particle of matter, they open that up and they realize there's nothing there, that it's really just energy that's compressed, that's packed together. So all physical matter, the chair I'm sitting in, chair you're sitting in, the computers that we're looking at, it's all just energy that's been packed together. Now, this is a law of physics. So physical matter is just energy that's packed together. Right. So now we have to get interested in energy, because matter is, the physical world isn't. It's just invisible energy that's packed together, making what looks like atoms, which looks like molecules, which looks like structure. Yeah. But if you unpack the structure, there's nothing there. Right. It's all based on just invisible energy. Right. So
light and
light. Yeah. The highest vibrational frequency of energy is light. So we have physical matter. If you dissect it down to the tiniest particle, and then you take light and you compress it, it meets right at this same place. So we're in the meeting place, and that's where humanity exists, is right here, where we're the cross between the physical world and the energetic world, and we're living right there, which is why we're capable of manifesting anything that we choose. We just have to learn how to do that. We have to learn all the parameters that are involved there, because it's not just your conscious mind, it's your subconsciousness also. So we have to learn how to tap the subconscious and use it in our favor, and get everything on the same page so that we can manifest into the physical world in accordance with what we can perceive and dream of in this invisible world of energy, where our dreams and our desires exist. So we pack that in, and then we express it into the physical world only if we know how to navigate this threshold right here. So that's what we're talking about. And that's much more complex than that's more information than we really have to know in order to have it work in our favor. But those of us that are interested in knowing, it's really fascinating to think that, wow, we're the doorway between the unmanifest world and the manifest world. So we get to choose what happens in our lives if we're willing to take that kind of responsibility. And that's the dilemma that we're up against right now.
Right. People not wanting to accept responsibility and putting it off on the doctors. And so those people that were getting medication their whole life, and then they realized that, almost all of my complications were actually due to medication that I received, or some medical intervention that I received. So if someone has mercury toxicity or something like that, can these systems work for healing the process, or do they need to do people talk about heavy metal detoxing, or so is this a path, the way you're talking about, for all healing, even if it's you've been poisoned, or you have a microbiome that's off, etc.?
Yeah. So what we're looking at is working with the microbiome, which ultimately translates into healing on every level, healing at the cellular level. We're looking at epigenetics, meaning, for those that don't know what epigenetics is, we used to think that the cell was controlled by the nucleus of the cell, that the nucleus inside the cell, there's a little brain in there that told the cell what to do. Right. But now epigenetics is teaching us that there are these little antennas on the surface of the cell that are picking up messages from the environment. And then those little antennas are reporting into the cell and telling it what to do, what chemicals to produce, etc. So if you think about that, what that means is the environment, the message that's coming to those antennas is much more important than anything. Right. So now we have to realize that we create that environment through the foods that we eat and the things that we drink, but most importantly, the thoughts that we think. The thoughts that we think will determine toxicity far above and beyond the foods that you eat, although the foods that you eat are also important to support, of course, an alkaline environment, which is what your cells are designed to be floating in. So my father did 40 years of research in nutrition, and so I grew up with all of that. So we get that your body's supposed to be alkaline everywhere except inside the stomach. And so the thoughts that we think produce acid. If we're worrying, if we're regretting, if we're resenting, if we're offended. If we're offended, we're producing acid in our body. So pick. Are you going to be offended, or are you going to just make a difference in the world?
Right.
So was I going to be frustrated and stressed out, or was I just going to decide, hey, I'm going to show up and do my thing every day the best I can. And if I do that, I had a great day. And if anybody listened to it and they took some of that information inside my treatment rooms and they went home and put it into application, they had a good day. Yeah. And that's just, it's up to us. So in this, there's this combination of things that has to happen for healing to happen. So we might be in toxic levels because of medications that we've taken, or because of fillings that we've had in our teeth, or the exposures that we've had to certain radiations, or those kinds of things. Yeah. You bet. But I want everyone to get this. There's a healer within you that if it's not plugged in, you can do all the detoxes in the world and all of your life long. And if you still are the victim that is running from the outside in, you can't take enough detox efforts to make a difference in turning the healer on. That healer is a conscious choice. It is circuits that need to be connected inside of you, which you can do yourself, and you can claim it. And you can turn this healer on because the healer is the real you. You are the healer. But we live in our heads and we're not in our bodies, so it's really tough to heal the body when we're not even living there, when we're not trusting our gut and listening to our heart and knowing that our dreams and our desires are their food for what we're supposed to be actioning. They're not separate from you. They're not out there pie in the sky. It's your guidance. We just have to learn how to take that energetic and turn it into fuel, literally. So it's a both and situation where we do have to detox and we do have to cleanse and we do have to live in a way from a lifestyle perspective that supports healing and wholeness.
Right.
And we do have to claim it mentally and emotionally, and we do have to access the subconscious. And that's why I put the information in the book that I did, because it teaches people how to open the trap door between the conscious and the subconscious so that healing can happen, because healing happens at a subconscious level. It happens at a subconscious level. If you think about it, you don't have to consciously keep your heart beating. You don't consciously keep your blood calcium levels the way they're supposed to be. You don't consciously digest lunch. It happens. So what we can do is influence it with our conscious mind. But the best way to get that happening is to open this doorway between the conscious and the subconscious. Then everything starts to work in our favor. I've been working with people for 30, I don't know, it's closer to 40 years now. And watched my father do this as well for his entire career, getting people in touch with how to heal themselves. I mean, we're built for this. We're supposed to be doing it all the time. No one taught us how.
We disconnected from it. And I know you're huge on breath, right? Yeah. So using breath as a part of the process to connect with the self, right? So where does breath fall into this? Like, I know there's a million techniques. You talk about the breathing. If you could just give an example real quick, or something that they could do to spark the process. Yeah,
absolutely. So yes, breath is a huge part, because we are energy beings. In the scientific world, we would say we're electromagnetic energy, made of energy, and we're pure consciousness, which is also based in energy, based in light. We're the light of awareness. Spirituality would say you're spirit in a body. So if you put it together, breath in the body is spirit in the body. We know when the body stops breathing, we leave. We used to call it that spirit leaves the body when we stop breathing, but it's actually you that leaves. It's not that you die and your spirit goes on. You are the spirit, so no worries about that. You're not going to die. You move on. Your body gets dropped away when you don't need it anymore. So that was a big aha in my life, to like, oh, good, cool. I get to go on. I'm not going to die, and my spirit gets to go on. It gets to be eternal. Sweet. So in that, if we start to blend those spirit and science together just a little here and allow it to, that's what the quantum world does. It's basically blending science and spirituality. It's really allowing all of it to be true. So, and that they interface and help each other and they support each other. So if we think of breath in the body as spirit in the body, it's the healer in the body. Mm-hmm. So breathing in your lower lobes of your lungs is very beneficial to getting you out of fight or flight mode and into healing, creative genius, healing, filtering, cleansing, detoxifying. Your body's trying to do that all the time. Yeah. If you breathe in the lower lobes of your lungs, like a belly breath, it pulls the oxygen down to the lower lobes of the lungs, which are innervated with the part of the nervous system that pulls you out of fight or flight and enhances healing in your body. Just by breathing in your belly, it enhances healing. Yeah. It also oxygenates the blood faster because there are more blood vessels at the base of your lungs. So the more oxygen in the bloodstream, the more it sends a signal to the brain that says, all is well. We're fully equipped in case anything would happen, no worries. Now we can relax because we're prepared. So belly breathing, tremendously beneficial. There's another thing that is really helpful to combine with that is an exercise that is an ancient Eastern practice called Mula Bandha. And it just means anchoring your energy, your consciousness at the base of the spine, because there is a tremendous amount of untapped kinetic healing energy and integrative energy at the base of the spine. It's called Kundalini energy that the Eastern culture references in meditation or yoga if you're into either of those things. And so Mula Bandha is how to like anchor yourself deep in your core, deep in your rootedness, deep in your belly, where your wisdom and your belongingness and your ability to know this is my movie and I'm writing it and I'm going to decide what everybody does in this movie, instead of getting caught up in your heads and worrying about what's going to happen next in the movie and how do I navigate it in the way that I should, and all of that fear-based reality that we tend to create. So here's how you do it. It's basically like if you were going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly, you'd squeeze certain muscles to do that. You squeeze those muscles in the base of the pelvic bowl, the perineal muscles, you squeeze them and it immediately starts to pull your energy down into your body where your deep core guttural wisdom resides. We talked about 11. Yeah, it's like a Kegel exercise for ladies. You know that instantly. Gentlemen, now you know what a Kegel exercise is about. So it's about contracting those perineal muscles that anchors you in your rootedness. Now you squeeze those muscles, and then on the inside of that, you take a belly breath. You're going to feel resistance. It's like, am I squeezing or am I expanding through the breath? And the answer is yes. All right. You want to squeeze those muscles and then take a belly breath. Squeeze those muscles. And it kind of creates this push-pull kind of feeling. That's exactly what you want to feel. Because if you'll create that resistance deep in the core of your body, you'll get a sense of who you are in an anchored fashion. If you have that sense of who you are in an anchored fashion in your body, then you don't have to create resistance in the outer world in order to figure out who you are. So you create this resistance here inside your body for just a few seconds is all it takes. Oh, there I am. Yep. And then you don't have to create that resistance through an argument or through being offended in the world in order to figure out who you are. We learn through resistance, period. So where are you going to create that resistance in order to learn? Responsibly, we would create it in the central toric field, in the central channel of our body, of the biofield, where it counts the most, because that's where the essential self resides, in the deep waters of your deep core center. Many other things that we can add on top of that. I'm happy to go over a couple, or they're in the book, or however you want to approach that. But anchoring in the body is essential for being able to make a difference with breath in your body. And here's the deal. If you're driving down the road and you're like all upset about something that's going on at work or something that's going on in your life, if you just contract this Mula Bandha and take a belly breath or two, you automatically will start to shift your disposition mentally. It changes the energetic instantly. So a warning would be, you might not be able to get a good upset going on. Like if you're addicted to being upset, it's going to change for you. So as you drop down into your core, you're going to start to feel differently, think differently, perceive differently automatically, because you're grounding your energies and it stabilizes you in an amazing way.
I've also heard it said that that's like literally like a battery pack that is in the enteric, like around our belly, which you can actually charge up and that's necessary for healing. Is that correct? Like you're literally charging the area of that body.
Absolutely. You may feel your body heat up just because you're doing this. There's a way to enhance this charge that you're describing, and it is to take a breath from above your head and imagine that you're breathing down through this tube, right through the top of your head, through the center of your brain, through the center of your throat, through the center of your chest, through the center of your heart, through into the belly, right into this place where we're contracting. And then exhale. That's all the inhale. And then you exhale into the earth. Just shoot it down into the earth. And then your next inhale comes up from the earth into this core belly while you're contracting. You never let go of that mula bandha while you're doing this. And you exhale out the top of your head. So it's a central channel breath. You inhale from overhead into the core, exhale into the earth. Inhale up from the earth to the core, exhale back out to the top. Inhale again here, exhale into the earth. Inhale up from the earth to the core, exhale all the way out. All the while contracting this mula bandha. You can squeeze your shoulder blades together as well and enhance it even more. You can roll your eyes up and feel the tension behind your eyes and enhance your awareness inside this central channel even more. And the next thing you know, you'll have sweat running down you without even really trying. If you're ever cold, you can heat up the body, warm up the body by doing this. But most importantly, yes, this is a stored, untapped access now to this untapped energy that has been seated there waiting for us to engage it, which people lose weight by doing this. People have all kinds of kinetic energy, vital energy to get through the day. And, most importantly, things begin to heal.
Awesome. That's perfect for the Healing Mastery Summit then. And so we're getting to the bottom of the hour. And I want to just give you time to share anything that you think would be impactful for our listeners. And for those that are listening, I highly recommend this book. I mean, if you didn't get amazing information out of this interview and see what a master level Sue is, I highly recommend this. So Sue, is there any last things that you would address for people listening? They're suffering, they're in pain maybe, and they need help, they need direction. Those breaths, awesome. Any last words in regards to that?
You bet. Yes, healing is a byproduct of you connecting with your true magnificence. And if you're in pain and you're frustrated with how long you've been in pain, and you don't have the energy to even get out of the house and experience life, it might be hard to imagine that you could connect with your magnificence. But your breath is tremendously accessible, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on. If you can't get out of a chair, if you can't get out of bed, you can breathe up and down through this central channel. And it's a start to start activating this healing energy, because the healer is you. You are the healer. And the real you has to come to life. And when we start breathing in the belly and breathing in the core and breathing in the heart, breathing in the throat, these different levels of consciousness start to come online. And all of a sudden you feel more creative and you feel more intuitive, and you have deeper wisdom that you can access. And you start hearing what it is that you need to do to have your life unfold differently. It's right here available for you, but we haven't been taught exactly how to hear the language of the soulful self, the true essential healer being. There is nothing broken. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing missing. You are whole and complete, and it is a matter of you putting those pieces together and feeling it. It's not about a thought. It's not about a word. It's not about a diagnosis. It's about a felt sensation of self. And when we honor that more than we ever have before, the body will automatically start healing. It can't not, because it was built for that. The body is built to survive. And the only reason it isn't healing is if it perceives that there's something more important that it should be doing than healing. And the only thing that is ever considered more important than healing is surviving. So if you're caught up in a survival-based reality that is a false reality, even though it looks real, your system isn't plugging into healing, and that trap door is slammed shut. We have to get the door open. You'll get it open with self-love, self-referencing. Come home to yourself. Drop deep inside and start breathing in this way. It is a start that will move you in a different way. And hopefully you can plug into the book and receive, more information about many, many things that you can do in terms of connecting the dots again and revealing your magnificence, because healing is a byproduct. It's not something to go after. It's your natural state. It's who you are. So hopefully that's helpful.
Amazing. I do have one last question before we end, actually,
Yep.
because this popped up. What's your take on ayahuasca or ibogaine, these connectors, that, as they call them? What's your take on that in terms of the healing process?
Yeah. So psychotropic things are helpful for people to have an awareness that there's another version of reality that I haven't been in touch with, and now I am. My concern only is that people know what to do with that information if they're perceiving it, if they're doing these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So the book that I wrote is about building the circuitry to sustain your understanding, or to interpret the greater reality one step at a time. So sometimes people take these things and they have a bad trip, they have a bad experience. And that's because they don't have the circuits in place to perceive what they're now seeing, what they're now aware of. They're not, to interpret it, or to integrate it, I should say. They don't have the circuits in place to interpret it, or to integrate it, or to infuse it, and to make a difference in their lives with it. So I don't have a problem with people doing it. I just want them to build the circuitry to be able to implement it in their lives, so that they don't have these two separate realities and create an addiction toward wanting to escape into that other reality, because they can't seem to make that one work here in this real physical world that we've come to. We're here for a reason, and we're supposed to master this one, not by trying to escape it. So it's okay to go. Just make sure you know how to bring that here. And the book teaches people how to do exactly that, if that's their approach. So
beautiful. So before you ever do something like that, you want to learn what's in the book, so you're connected, and then it makes more sense. That's beautifully put. And so how can they get a hold of you? Basically, you do a bunch of workshops, you do presentations. Like, where can they get in contact with you? On social media? You're on Facebook, Dr. Sue Morter. Where else? Any other events you got coming on?
Yes, and then also drsuemorter.com, DRSUEMORTER.com is a website, gives all kinds of references to workshops that I'm teaching. I do a masterclass live stream every month, and they can plug into that. They can come and see me at live events and learn all kinds of techniques hands-on. I'm everywhere, so just come. I'm easy to find.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. The listeners, I'm sure you got a ton of value out of this. This has been amazing. So thank you again, Dr. Sue Morter. We appreciate it for joining us at the Healing Masters Summit. Have an awesome day.
My great pleasure. Thanks for what you're doing in the world. It's very important to share the word. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.